polls have closed, we're getting a better idea of who will represent El Paso. Thanks for joining us. I'm Farron Franzak.
I'm Don Guevara. Thanks for joining us on Facebook Live. News Channel 9 is your election headquarters, and we're going to start off with the race for mayor. Let's get right to those numbers. Dee Margo with a 60% lead over David Salcedo's 40%. Of course, this is one of the biggest races in this runoff, and Margo, just like last time, getting off to an early lead. And let's send things over to News Channel 9's Alejandra Briones. She is live from Margo's watch party in West El Paso. Allie, what is the mood like out there? Got to be a lot of celebratory things going on out there tonight.
Yeah, spirits are high. They're not even calling it a watch party. They're calling it a victory party. And as we mentioned, numbers haven't changed from earlier today. Dee Margo continues in the lead with that 60% for early voting results. We did speak to Margo earlier, and he says usually early voting numbers are a pretty good indication of who won the race. And with such an with such a low voter turnout, we're almost expecting for those numbers to stay pretty close as those results continue to come in. And that was what happened when those final results, finally came in. They weren't really that much different from the early voting numbers. Now, again, these are not final numbers, so we are still monitoring as those precincts start reporting their election results as well, and we will keep you updated on that. And again, it is still a packed house here at Dee Margo's victory party, as they are calling it. People continue to come in, and emotions here. Everyone's excited. Everyone is just ready for this to be over. They say they have been working really hard for this day, and they're just excited to see those final results. We will, again, keep updating you with those election results, those numbers as they continue coming in, and we'll hear from Margo again at 9. Reporting live in West El Paso, Alejandra Briones, News Channel 9.
All right, Alejandra, thank you. Now to the challenger, David Salcedo. News Channel 9's Stephanie Safer live from his watch party in Central El Paso. Steph, Salcedo was very confident on the campaign trail. How's he doing now, trailing so far behind?
Well, when those first numbers started rolling in, David, you said that you were going to wait out until the end of the night to see those results a little bit more. How are you feeling? Do you still feel like you have a chance, even though Margo is in the lead right now?
Well, I think El Paso's ready for a change, and if Dee Margo is the victor, I want him to be successful. I think I'm excited for a Margo administration. I think that this is what El Paso needs, and look, it came down to me and Dee Margo, two outsiders for El Paso politics. So look, I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm happy with the results, win or lose. I just want Dee Margo to know that I want to be successful. I'm in his corner, and I want him to be successful, and that's what I want for El Paso. This is a good day for El Paso.
Do you think these early voting numbers are an indicator of who is going to win this election?
Well, who knows? Perhaps, maybe, but ultimately, it's okay. If it's us, great. If it's Dee Margo, okay, that's good. And I just want him to know that I'll support him. And this entire process, entire campaign has been incredibly humbling. I think it's changed me as a person, and it's made me love El Paso a lot more.
It sounds like you kind of are rooting, if you will, now for Dee Margo. You seemed very confident in the beginning. What are your feelings right now?
I think that Dee Margo will do a good job for El Paso, just as I thought I would do a good job for El Paso. And at the end of the day, they tried to make a big deal about both of us being Republicans and this and that, and ultimately a Republican's going to be the mayor of El Paso, and I think that's a huge change for El Paso. Indeed, it's a non-partisan race, but what we're doing is unsustainable. So El Paso needs a dramatic change, and I think having a conservative in office will hopefully bring the change that we need.
All right, David, thank you so much. He's joined here by his friends and family. I'm going to go ahead and send things over. I'll see you all back in the studio.
All right, Estefania, thank you. I think we heard it for the first time. David Salcedo coming out saying that he is, in fact, a Republican. Well, we're going to go to District 2 City Rep now, which covers Central El Paso. Out of the original 6 candidates, it's all come down to those two you see there on your screen, incumbent Jim Tolbert and challenger Alexandra Anello. Now, you can see Tolbert is trailing right now as the incumbent, 38% to Anello's 62%. News Channel 9's Patrick Hayes just returned from incumbent Jim Tolbert's house. Patrick, what did he have to say about where he's at right now?
Well, Farron, as you just saw, Tolbert is down more than 300 votes, and when I spoke to him a couple minutes ago, he told me at this point it will be hard to catch up.
It doesn't look good, and I don't think we'll be able to catch up in the, when the other votes come in, but, it is what it is.
I guess any thoughts looking back on your term, anything you're really proud about, anything you wish you would have done differently?
Well, I think we did a lot of things good. I think there were just a number of things. There are a couple of ordinances I wish I could see get finished, and a couple of other things, but that's the way it is.
Now, as for Ornella, she's not even in town tonight. That's because she's getting married this weekend. You'll hear from her on Facebook Live tonight at 9. And reporting in the newsroom, Patrick Hayes, News Channel 9.
All right, Patrick, thank you. Turning now to the race for District 3, which includes portions of central and south central El Paso. It's the seat that was currently held by Emma Acosta. Of course, she gave that up for her run for mayor. Let's take a look at the numbers. Cassandra Hernandez-Brown is leading over Jaime Barcelo. Those numbers that we have right now, there's about 59% to Barcelo's 41%. Moving now to the Northeast and District 4, the seat currently held by Carl Robinson, who has reached his term limit. It's a close one between Sam Morgan and Shane Haggerty. News Channel 9's Coris Nylander joins us now from Sam Morgan's watch party in Northeast El Paso. Coris.
Well, Don, as you see with the early voting results, Sam Morgan has a lead over Shane Haggerty at this point at about a 10% percentile here. I'm joined by Sam Morgan right now. We're at his watch party at Artavino's here in the Northeast. First off, a lot of excited people here for you tonight.
Definitely some excited people here. They've worked hard for this. They've worked very hard for it.
So seeing at this point, you're pulling ahead, which was also the case for you before the runoff, the May 6th election. How are you feeling here tonight seeing you're pulling ahead once again?
I'm feeling fantastic. These numbers are reflective of the people's will, and I feel excited about it. I'm excited.
So if you do get this position after tonight, what do you think is the biggest issue going into office?
The biggest issue is just getting in there and just identifying the issues that need to be taken care of. Road, streets, Cohen Stadium is a big one. We definitely want to get in there and get a survey and find out what's going on with Cohen Stadium.
Thank you, sir. And we're going to stay here at the watch party. We're going to be watching those numbers closely, and we'll let you know the latest results as they come in. Again, these are just early voting results. We're live in Northeast El Paso. Coris Nylander, News Channel 9.
All right, Coris, thank you. And filling out the El Paso City Council District 8, this is the seat that was left vacant by Courtney Nyland, who resigned back in April. Now, the district covers a big chunk of West El Paso, downtown, and parts of South Central El Paso. Of the 5 running for this seat, Robert Cormel has the majority, as you can see there, with 45%, followed by Sissy Lizagara. In order for the candidate to win, they must have at least 50% plus 1. So this will most likely go into a runoff. Again, Robert Cormel leading Sissy Lizagara right now with 45 to 22%.
And with that, we welcome our political analyst, Dr. Richard Pineda.
Dr. Pineda is the director of the Sam Donaldson Center for Communication Studies at UTEP, our go-to political analyst all night for us tonight. What do you think about the results so far of what we've seen?
Well, I mean, I think the most interesting race is probably the District 8 special election, and largely because for a special election seat, you don't have a lot of build-up. There's not a lot of time for candidates to put together war chests, and it really is a campaign on the fly. So the work that was put in that particular race, I think you're seeing some payout for Robert Cormel. It'll be interesting to see what things end up happening by the end of the night. The second big takeaway, of course, is going to be the mayor's race, and looking at those numbers, I think that Mr. Margot kept the same dominating lead that he had in the general, and clearly is looking forward to taking over as mayor.
And I want to go back to the mayor's race, since we're now on the topic of it. David Saucedo did come out saying that he is a Republican. In fact, him and Dee Margo are. We are in a blue county, a very blue county. Would you have ever imagined something like this to happen?
No, and quite frankly, the County Democratic Party bears a lion's share of the blame for that. I think that this is a town where there are a number of candidates that are Democrats, a number of folks who could have run as a Democratic candidate, and the fact that there was really only one Emma Acosta that the party was backing going into the general election, I think, is a sure sign. The party needs to do a little bit of soul searching. I think that needs to start early in training candidates and potential candidates. I think that it might even require reaching across to the county Republicans and saying, what can we do to engage voters so that they're more inclined to participate in these elections?
And what a humble David Saucedo we saw tonight. Yeah. Something we have not seen in this campaign. He was saying that had he won, he would have been the youngest Hispanic mayor in the country. Do you think that kind of attitude hurt him? And had he been more like we had seen him with Estefania, that may have helped him?
Well, I think that's definitely the case. I think, you know, the challenge is always that hindsight is much harder to plan out for a candidate. But I think in some ways, I think that the race, at least in this runoff stage, was very much about throwing quite a bit of mud. I mean, the day after the general election, as you recall, Saucedo was very vocal in his criticisms that corruption was running rampant at City Hall. I think somebody wanting to become the chief executive of a city cannot use language like that to disparage the workforce that they might take over. I think that was the beginning of the end. I think that combined with a number of strategic missteps, and as you point out, Don, the fact that you've got to be a little bit more humble in your approach to running a campaign like this. I think that's incredibly important.
And mud didn't seem to work in the District 3 race with Hernandez and Barcelo. Barcelo, of course, putting out that mailer about Hernandez's I guess, arrest, which she had put in on her mailer. I want to talk about Jim Tolbert, though, and it seems like he's sort of admitted defeat. Again, he was removed, or he's going to be removed, largely in part because of this ethics investigation, and he got his seat because the person who had it before was also under an ethics investigation. So a very interesting twist of irony there in that seat.
And you had said earlier, Don, you know, that this ethics investigation has kind of, it really came in like a wrecking ball. We lost Lily Limon.
The mayor.
We lost the mayor. You know, it's one of those things that could this now be a third time's a charm with this ethics investigation?
Right. Well, I think that's right. I mean, and I think for folks who paid attention to the Poison Pond investigation a couple of years ago with the county, I don't think that this has been as large, but I think the fact that the specter was hanging, and quite frankly, the folks that were on the list for this investigation really shirked away from trying to explain it. I mean, there was initially a sense of this really isn't that big a deal, and then it sort of moved away as Representative Tolbert tried in his campaign to say there's not even an investigation that's ongoing. I think that the first rule of crisis communication is to confront the problem immediately and to say, yes, we know that it's here. Here's what we're going to do to make things better. Here's how we're going to handle it. And nobody seems to have done that. And I think that those candidates are paying the price.
Which is funny because he did that with me the day that all this broke. I was at his house and we talked about it. And then he did it again with me when we were here at the candidate forum. And we talked about this investigation. And he then tried to make it seem like they had been dismissed, which were the cases against the city. But the one by the Texas Rangers was still ongoing and is still ongoing. And then there was that flyer that we reported on within the last month where he said there's no proof that I'm under investigation, and that's just not true.
Yeah, and I think, again, going back to this idea of crisis communication, whether it's a corporate scenario or a scenario where you're talking about a political candidate, you have to be honest and you have to approach the voting public with the understanding that they know what's going on. I mean, this is literally not about sort of ducking behind the wall and saying, if I can't see it, it's not there. I don't think that works. It didn't in this case.
And I want to talk about District 8 because I feel that with District 8, the two names that we saw the most, literally outside, was Cicely Sadaga and Robert Cormel. Not so much of, you know, as far as Gilbert Guillen, Trini Acevedo, or Adolfo Lopez. Do you think that, I mean, having that old style of campaign logic actually worked for these two?
So, you know, two things. We started out by talking about how 8 was a quick run-up, and as a traditional campaign, it's much harder to lay out a lot of the milestones that you would do in such a narrow time. So I think Cormel comes into this race with the advantage of having run for mayor, running a citywide campaign, understands the mechanics of how those things work. The downside of that, though, is that I don't think that a lot of the issues that were problematic in that mayoral race have come back out. So Mr. Cormel was very vocal about his position on same-sex marriage. That was something that has not come out in the early part of this campaign. I suspect now that it's a race between two people, it will be a serious issue and it will be something that will be a challenge for his campaign to answer.
And we'll see what happens with that. Going back to the mayoral race, because we were talking about campaign logic with all of this. You saw when we were talking about Saucedo saying he would be the youngest Hispanic mayor in the country if he were elected. He went more of the Facebook route. He went more of the on the internet as far as his campaign reach.
Very millennial kind of approach to elections.
Whereas DeMargo, he was old school. He was the mailers. He was, you said, the door hangers, the signs. So with what happened, do you think that possibly that old school style works better in El Paso for those maybe looking to run in the future?
You know, one of the most effective ways for a candidate to draw recognition with voters is to stand outside of jury duty. And as everybody gets called in to jury duty to shake hands and introduce yourself, I think that style of campaigning, as old school as it may be, will never lose its cachet. I think the problem with a strategy that's more digital and more Facebook oriented is that it assumes that pool of voters is active in the first place. I don't don't think that's the case. I think the data will bear out that the millennials are probably not as strong in terms of voting. And so that means that if you're trying to cultivate them, before you can get to the Facebook stage, you still have to get voter education in play, which means you've got to talk to them about how the process works. You've got to talk to them what happens when there's a runoff. I mean, one of the things that's always dangerous in a runoff election is that a lot of times when approached a second time, a voter will say to a campaign or to a candidate, but I already voted for you. And you've got to explain how runoff works and that they've got to go out again. And I think that those kinds of things have to be done face-to-face and not via Facebook, especially because it's not a neutral space. So people on Facebook are going to use that to push back against each other, not really get into a mechanics question or a space to be able to engage about the process.
All right, Dr. Richard Pineda, thanks so much for joining us, folks. We're going to keep crunching those numbers as they come in every 45 minutes. We're usually seeing them at the top of the hour. So we will be back on Facebook Live at 9 p.m.
And we'll see you on air live at 10 p.m. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you then.